What if an ancient machine still lies buried underground? Before we begin, let your body sink into comfort. Find a position where your shoulders can loosen, your jaw can rest, and your breath can flow easily in and out. Let the day's noise drift to the edges of your mind. This is a time for stillness, for slow wonder, for gentle curiosity that won't disturb your rest. Wherever you are right now, maybe in a quiet room, maybe lying under warm blankets, maybe listening with the soft glow of a phone screen in the dark, I'd love to know. Where are you listening from tonight? Somewhere far from city lights? Somewhere where the earth still feels close beneath your feet? Let me know, because every listener's place becomes part of this story's journey. Now, close your eyes if you wish. Let your breathing slow. Feel the gentle rise and fall in your chest, and imagine that somewhere far away, deep beneath the soil, there is another breath. Slower, older, almost too quiet to hear. The air you breathe now feels cool, but in your imagination it tastes faintly metallic, as if touched by something ancient. You don't know why, but you feel drawn toward it. You're standing in a clearing. The night is still. Above you the moon hangs low, its silver light spilling across the earth like water across polished stone. The air is warm, not from the day's heat, but from something that seems to come from beneath your feet. It is a warmth that feels alive. If you stand completely still, so still that even the grass seems to pause, you can feel it. A faint, steady hum, not in your ears, but somewhere deeper, as if the ground itself is speaking in a language you can't yet understand. Around you, the land stretches wide and empty. The horizon is a soft, blurred line where night sky and earth merge into one dark expanse. You can smell the faint sweetness of distant blossoms, carried here by a slow wind. You can hear the delicate rustle of leaves far away, but nearer to you, the world is quieter. Quieter, except for that hum. It doesn't sound mechanical, not like the buzzing of wires or the rattling of gears. It's softer, smoother, a vibration that seems almost like a heartbeat. You wonder, though you don't know why you would, if the ground itself might be alive. You shift your weight slightly, and as your foot presses deeper into the earth, you feel the warmth grow for just a moment. It makes your skin prickle, not with fear, but with curiosity, like when you are about to hear a secret. You crouch down, pressing your palm against the ground. The soil is loose on top, but beneath there is something firmer, smoother. Your fingers almost imagine the shape of it, like a casing, curved and seamless, not like stone you've ever felt before. For a moment your mind tells you it's only your imagination, the way darkness plays tricks, but the hum is still there, steady, patient, waiting. The night deepens. The stars above you seem brighter now, as if watching. The longer you stay in this clearing, the more it feels as though you've stepped out of ordinary time. Somewhere far away the world is still moving. People sleeping, cars passing on dim roads, waves curling and breaking on distant shores. But here, time has slowed to match the rhythm beneath your feet. The hum, the warmth, the stillness, they weave together into a feeling you cannot name. It is not fear. It is not comfort either. It is something older than both. Something like standing at the edge of the sea before the first wave arrives, when all the water pulls back and the air feels charged, holding its breath. And then the thought comes, so quietly that it doesn't feel like yours at all. What if this is not simply the earth beneath you? The question lingers in your mind, unhurried. as if it had been waiting for you to notice? What if this clearing, this ground you stand on, is only the surface, a thin shell above something vast and hidden, something made not by wind or water, not by roots or stone, but by hands, by minds, by a people who lived so long ago that their names, their cities, even the shape of their world have been forgotten. A shiver travels through you, but it is not from the cool night air. You feel it because for the first time you sense the possibility that you are standing above something that is still here, still intact, still waiting. Your breath has slowed without you noticing. The hum has become a part of it, rising and falling in time with your own. You close your eyes, and in the darkness behind your eyelids you almost see it, a shape in the deep earth, the colour of old bronze and dark iron, immense and coiled, its surface carved with patterns you don't understand. The patterns pulse faintly, as if they are alive, as if they are breathing. You do not know how far beneath the soil it lies, or how large it is. But in your mind you feel its presence not as an object, but as a being, not asleep, but not awake either, in a state of perfect stillness, waiting for the moment, the reason to stir again. A breeze brushes your cheek, warm and soft. You open your eyes, and the clearing is exactly the same as before. Moonlight spilling over the grass, the wide horizon, the stars watching. But now you know something you didn't before. The earth beneath you holds more than soil and stone. You take one more deep breath, letting the air fill you slowly, then leaving your body just as slowly. You let the thought settle. What if? An ancient machine still lies buried underground, older than memory, older than history, and not yet finished with its purpose. The hum answers you with silence, not the absence of sound, but the kind of silence that carries weight, the kind of silence that feels like a promise. Somewhere in the distance a night bird calls once, twice, then falls quiet again. You look toward the horizon, but your thoughts are still with the ground beneath you. Somewhere down there is the truth. Whether it is the truth of history or the truth of legend, you cannot yet say. But you know, and now you cannot unknow, that something waits. And so you stand there in the stillness, breathing in rhythm with the hidden heart of the earth, letting the quiet draw you deeper into the night, deeper into the story that is about to unfold. Your palm is still pressed lightly to the ground, and you can feel that subtle vibration, steady, unbroken, as if it has been there since before your first breath, and will be there long after your last. The hum is not loud, not even what most would call sound, but more like the low thrum of a deep river beneath ice. You lift your hand and feel its absence, like stepping away from a fire on a cold night. The warmth, too, withdraws, though the memory of it lingers in your skin. The clearing is not remarkable at first glance. It could be anywhere. A wide patch of grass ringed by trees, their trunks pale in the moonlight. But now, after feeling what lies below, it's impossible to see this place as ordinary. It is as if the earth here wears a mask, one so perfect that for centuries no one has thought to lift it. You realize that this mask has fooled the birds that roost in the trees, the deer that pass through at dusk, and even the human eyes that might have once stumbled across it and moved on without a second thought. You stand and take a slow step forward, scanning the ground. The grass shifts gently in the night air. You see no openings, no cracks, no sign that this is anything but solid earth. Yet your heart insists otherwise. You imagine the hidden skin of bronze and iron stretching out beneath you in every direction, a buried giant curled in slumber. The hum rises slightly, not louder, but more present, as if answering your thoughts. It is not hostile. It is not even curious. It simply is, like a heartbeat, or the turning of the earth. And yet, there's something in it that feels deliberate, almost purposeful. The air changes. It grows heavier, more still, as if the forest around you has paused to listen. The silence deepens until you can hear the blood in your ears, your breath moving in and out, and beneath it all, that rhythm. You take another step, and again, the faint warmth greets the sole of your boot. The ground is solid but not unyielding. You feel, and this is strange to admit even to yourself, as if there is a skin beneath your feet, a surface that might give way if pressed in just the right way. The thought returns, unbidden, carrying with it a weight that seems far greater than your own voice. What if this is not the earth at all, but the casing of a machine? Your mind searches for something to compare it to, a clock, a ship, a great engine, but no image you summon feels right. This thing, whatever it is, does not belong to the familiar world of pistons and wheels, of gears and levers. It feels older, yet more advanced. It feels alien, but not in the sense of something from another world, more like something from another time, a time before the earth was as it is now. You try to imagine the hands that built it. Were they human? Could they have been? Did they know they were making something that would endure so long, outlast empires and oceans and mountains? Or was that endurance the very reason it was built? You realize that the thought of it stirs something inside you. Not fear, not exactly awe, but a strange, unsettling blend of both. The grass shifts again in the breeze. Somewhere far above, clouds drift across the moon, dimming the silver light. The clearing grows darker, shadows stretching out from the trees. In the dimness, the ground beneath you seems smoother, less like a patchwork of roots and earth, more like a single surface waiting to be uncovered. You kneel again and let your fingertips trace over the grass, feeling for any change in the texture. The soil is soft at first, crumbling away at your touch, but then you feel it, that same firmness, curved and unbroken. You tap it lightly, and the sound that returns is not the dull, empty knock of stone, but something lower, resonant, almost like striking a drum whose skin has been stretched for centuries. The sound fades, but you remain still, listening. For a moment you think you hear another sound beneath the hum, something layered deep within it. A pattern, perhaps. 3 pulses, then a pause. 3 pulses again. Slow, methodical. Your breath catches. It is not random. You're certain now. It is not simply a natural vibration born from shifting earth or underground water. This is measured, deliberate. You rise and turn slowly, scanning the clearing as if the shape beneath your feet might suddenly reveal itself. Your eyes lift to the horizon. Beyond the ring of trees, you can just make out the outline of distant hills, pale shapes against the darker sky. You wonder how far this thing might stretch. Is it contained entirely beneath this clearing, or does it run beneath the forest, the hills, the rivers beyond? Could it be larger than the land you stand on? Larger than you can even imagine? You breathe deeply again, letting the cool night air fill your lungs, letting your shoulders relax. Despite the enormity of the thought, you feel no rush to act, no need to disturb the ground or pry at its secrets. Whatever is down there has been here for longer than you can comprehend, and it will remain here long after this night ends. There is a strange comfort in that. Your eyes return to the ground. You picture it again in your mind, that immense coiled structure resting in the dark, untouched. It could be older than the first carved stone, older than the first fire lit by human hands. And yet here you are, standing above it, able to feel its faint warmth through the soles of your boots. The question lingers, softer now, like a whisper at the edge of sleep. What if it is not dead? What if it never was? Somewhere far off, you hear the soft cry of an animal, the rustle of something moving through the undergrowth. The night is still, but not silent. The hum beneath you seems part of the same quiet rhythm as the wind, the leaves, the distant water flowing somewhere beyond sight. The moon emerges from the clouds again, silver light washing over the clearing. You can see your own shadow stretch long across the grass, and for a fleeting moment you imagine another shadow beside it, vast and curved, rising from beneath the earth. You blink and it's gone, just the grass swaying gently once more. You take one slow step back, then another. Your feet find the path you came by, though the way seems different now. Every tree, every rock, every bend in the ground feels somehow connected to what lies beneath. As you move away from the clearing, the hum fades, but not completely. It stays with you, like an echo you carry inside your own chest. The night air feels cooler now, but your skin still holds the memory of that warmth. The thought of it will not leave you. Not tonight, not in the days to come. You know that you will return here. You know that you will stand in that clearing again, listening, feeling, wondering. Because now you cannot unknow what you have felt. And as you walk away into the darkness, the hum continues, deep and steady, like the heartbeat of something vast, something waiting, something that has been here for longer than history itself. Far from the stillness of the clearing, in the quiet halls of libraries and the dust-filled archives of old universities, the place you have just stood upon has another name, another face. On maps and in official records, it is not marked as a mystery, but as a region of modest, historical interest. Nothing more than a stretch of rolling plains, edged by low hills, above a limestone bed that has shaped the land for millions of years. Scholars have long placed it within the reach of an ancient culture known for its simple tools, its carved stone idols, its mastery of agriculture. From above, whether in the eye of a bird or in the grainy black and white photos tucked away in museum drawers, the land is a gentle ripple of green and gold through the seasons. In spring, the grass bends and sways with the wind. In summer, it grows tall and hides the earth beneath in a dense living carpet. There are streams here, curling through the fields like veins of silver, their banks littered with the rounded stones of the river's long work. The hills beyond rise soft and steady, layered in shadow when the sun dips low. To those who've written its official story, this land is an echo of a civilization already understood. The remains of weathered walls and crumbling terraces, found not far from the clearing, have been catalogued, measured, and dated. Pottery shards, carved bone tools, and fragments of weaving tell of a people who lived in harmony with the rhythms of nature, planting with the rains, harvesting under the long summer light, building with the stone and timber at hand. There is no place in this narrative for machines, let alone ancient ones. The first surveys were made in the late 19th century when explorers, part scientists, part adventurers, set out to document the ancient ruins scattered across the region. Their journal spoke of low stone foundations, circular enclosures that might have been huts, and odd depressions in the earth that they assumed were the remains of storage pits or ceremonial grounds. The limestone beneath, they noted, formed caves in places, shallow hollows where rainwater had eaten away at the rock. These were chalked up to natural processes, nothing more. By the 1920s, the area had been mapped in detail. A few scattered excavation sites had yielded enough finds to build a tidy picture of the past, a people of hunters and farmers, skilled in crafting tools from bone and stone, with a social structure built around seasonal gatherings and shared resources. Theirs was a world without written language, without metal beyond the occasional lump of copper or iron meteorite, shaped into a bead or blade. Their homes were made to last a generation or two, their monuments simple but meaningful. The deeper layers of soil and stone were deemed irrelevant to the story. When the earth resisted the shovels and picks of the excavators, the work simply moved elsewhere. Any unusually smooth surfaces beneath the soil were explained as glacial rock, polished long before humans arrived. In university lecture halls, slides of the region were shown to students as examples of how geography shapes civilization. The limestone bed, with its natural caves and channels, was described as a source of fresh water, a shelter from storms, a foundation for simple structures. That was all. No suggestion of something greater, something hidden, was ever made. Even now, in guidebooks for travellers and in the quiet voice of museum docents, the story remains the same. A pastoral landscape shaped by the hands of farmers, dotted with the traces of their modest lives. They tell of planting seasons and hunting paths, of hearth fires and shared meals beneath the open sky. They do not speak of hums in the earth or warmth beneath the soil. And yet, when you listen closely to these official accounts, there are small places where the words falter, not in what they say, but in what they choose not to. A mention of unusual stone patterns that is never explained. A passing remark about features inconsistent with surrounding strata. Notes in the margins of early excavation reports, written in hurried script, then crossed out. The hills themselves have been part of this accepted history for as long as records have been kept. Geologists describe their smooth, rounded forms as the result of countless ages of wind and rain, their limestone bones shaped by water long before human eyes ever saw them. The streams that thread through them are said to follow ancient fault lines, their courses unchanged for thousands of years. In this telling, the land is silent. It has no pulse, no memory, no voice beneath the surface. It is a canvas, not a participant. You picture one of those early surveyors, perhaps a man in a broad-brimmed hat, leaning on a walking stick as he looks out over the same clearing you stood in. To him, it is just another patch of earth, another line on his map to be filled in. He marks its coordinates, sketches a rough outline, and moves on. Whatever hum might have been there, it does not find its way into his notes. This is how the clearing has survived so long without becoming the focus of more than a passing glance. The story told about it has been small, tidy, complete. The official history has no need for mysteries, no room for machines buried in the dark. It is easier to see it as a place where time flows only in one direction, where the past can be neatly boxed and labelled, then placed on a museum shelf. And yet, as you recall the feeling beneath your hand, that faint rhythmic vibration, It is impossible to believe this is all the land holds. You think of the scholars, the curators, the patient voices telling their rehearsed accounts. Perhaps they believe them. Perhaps they do not. Perhaps some of them, standing alone in the clearing, have felt what you felt and chosen to remain silent. The moonlight in your memory glints on the grass as you recall the moment your palm pressed to the earth. That image is at odds with the neat diagrams and photographs of stone walls and broken pottery. It belongs to a different story entirely, one not bound by the tidy lines of official history. And now, somewhere deep in your mind, the two versions, the sanctioned past and the one you've begun to suspect, sit side by side. One is comfortable, familiar, easy to explain. The other is heavy with questions, with possibilities too vast to name. You take a slow breath, letting your thoughts drift between them, feeling the gap between what is known and what is felt. That gap is where the real story waits, patient and unmoving, just like the hum beneath the clearing. You suspect the official history is not wrong in what it says, only in what it leaves unsaid. And it is in that silence, in those empty spaces, that the truth might still be hiding. For decades, the official history remained unchallenged, each retelling smoothing away whatever rough edges of doubt might have clung to the early reports. The story was taught, repeated, written into textbooks, and spoken aloud in the measured tone of those who believed it beyond question. The land you stood on was presented as nothing more than the quiet resting place of an unremarkable people, a footnote in the long unfolding of human history. In the archives there are photographs from the first serious excavation in the 1920s. They are yellowed now, their corners curling, but the images are clear enough. Men in wide trousers and suspenders, their sleeves rolled up, leaning on spades and shovels. The trenches they dug cut into the earth in neat rectangles, the spoil piled at their sides. In some images the men hold small artifacts in their hands, a shard of pottery with a geometric design, a piece of polished bone, a crude stone blade. The captions are simple and factual. Clay vessel fragment, estimated date 1200 BCE. Stone adze, weathered. The deeper they dug, the more the earth fought back. Beneath the looser soil was a dense, pale layer of limestone, solid, unyielding. In most cases, the team stopped digging there. Limestone was the bedrock, they believed, the end of the story, and so the artifacts that might have lain deeper remained undisturbed, wrapped in their silence. The official reports from these digs speak with a calm certainty. They describe the layers of soil in careful detail, note the placement of stones in walls and enclosures, list the measurements of each find. It is a language of precision and control, designed to give the impression that nothing has been overlooked. Yet what is absent from these pages is as telling as what is present. In one early report, a single line stands out, buried halfway through a paragraph about soil composition. In the southeast trench, the team encountered an unusually smooth surface at a depth of 12 feet, curved in a manner inconsistent with surrounding limestone formations. The line is not expanded upon. No measurements, no samples, no photographs. In later summaries of the excavation, the line is gone entirely, as if it had never been written. In the decades that followed, other expeditions came and went. In the 1960s, a university-led team conducted a wider survey of the region, using more advanced dating techniques on the artifacts they found. Their conclusion reinforced the accepted timeline. the culture that had once lived here flourished between roughly 1500 and 1000 BCE, then faded as the climate shifted and resources grew scarce. Their report is meticulous in its timelines, confident in its conclusions. Still, scattered throughout their notes are hints that something was different here. A handful of artifacts were made from materials not found anywhere in the surrounding region. The official explanation was that they had been traded from distant cultures. A reasonable idea, though no trade networks of that scale were known for the time period. A few of the pottery shards bore strange markings that did not match the decorative styles of any neighbouring culture. These were labelled as likely symbolic and filed away without further investigation. In the 1980s, a local historical society attempted to bring renewed interest to the area. They restored some of the visible ruins, low walls, terraces and the remains of circular structures, and built a small visitor centre with displays of the artefacts. The centre's exhibits were carefully curated to present a consistent story. The land had been home to a small, peaceful society, one that lived simply and left behind only modest traces of its existence. Any anomalies were omitted. Visitors walking through the centre would see a large mural of the surrounding landscape as it might have appeared 3,000 years ago. Rolling fields of grain, clusters of small homes, figures tending crops or carrying baskets. A caption beneath the painting read, "Life here was quiet and slow, shaped by the turning of the seasons." It was a story that fit neatly into the broader tapestry of the past, a story without hums beneath the earth, without warmth seeping up through the soil. Yet not everyone who came here left satisfied with that version of history. Now and then a traveller would stand in the clearing for longer than most, head tilted as if listening. Some would walk the perimeter slowly, their hands brushing the grass, their eyes scanning for something unseen. The staff at the visitor centre would smile politely, but they had no answers for those questions. The most striking omission from the official history is the complete absence of any reference to the deeper caves beneath the hills. Local shepherds and hunters had spoken of them for generations, narrow openings in the rock that led to twisting passages, some ending in underground chambers large enough to stand in. The official surveys mapped a few shallow examples, but declared the rest too unstable to explore. In truth, it seems, there was little appetite for what might be found deeper down, and so the land remained in its quiet role, its official story untroubled by speculation. The hum beneath the clearing went unmentioned in books and tours. The warmth in the soil was passed off as a trick of the weather, and the curved, smooth surface encountered by that 1920s team was never spoken of again. But you now, having felt the vibration with your own body, cannot help but read between the lines. You see how the pieces might fit differently than they have been arranged. You see that the neatness of the accepted history may be an illusion, a surface as carefully shaped as the ground you stood on in the moonlight. As you imagine the archaeologists of the past standing over their trenches, brushing away soil from shards of pottery, you wonder if they felt the same quiet presence that you did. If, late at night, they lay awake thinking of that smooth, curved surface and what it might mean. If they too heard that slow, steady hum, and if they did, why they chose not to speak of it. History, you realize, is not just what is written down. It is also what is left out, and in those gaps, in that deliberate silence, lies the possibility that something far greater has been hidden, waiting for someone willing to listen. It began quietly, as such things often do, not with a grand discovery or a sudden revelation, but with a small, almost forgettable detail. A single photograph taken in the mid-1960s, stored in a mislabeled folder, found years later by a graduate student working late in a dusty archive room. The image showed a narrow passage within one of the limestone caves near the clearing. Most of the walls in such caves were rough and jagged, shaped by the slow work of water over countless centuries. But here, in the centre of the frame, the stone curved in a way that seemed deliberate, smooth, unblemished, its arc too perfect to be natural. The caption was brief: "Unusual formation, Cave B, Southern Fork." Nothing more. No explanation. For the student who found it, that was the beginning of a quiet obsession. She compared the photograph to known geological patterns, to erosion marks, to the effects of ancient quarrying. None matched. The surface in the image was almost flawless, like the inside of a great pipe, yet there was no sign of tool marks. It was as though the rock had been melted into that shape, then cooled in absolute stillness. Other clues had surfaced before, scattered across the decades, but always brushed aside. In 1938, a pair of amateur explorers claimed to have followed a narrow fissure into the hillside and discovered a tunnel so precise it could have been cut by a modern machine. They described the floor as level, the walls as subtly reflective in the light of their lanterns. Their report was dismissed as exaggeration. They were told the tunnel was a natural formation polished by centuries of subterranean water. But the explorers insisted the tunnel's shape, perfectly elliptical, with no variation in width, could not be explained that way. Then there were the fragments. In 1951, during the repair of a collapsed path near the visitor centre's present-day location, workers uncovered several shards of a metal so heavily oxidized it crumbled at the touch. A local blacksmith examined them and declared it was neither iron nor copper, and unlike any alloy he knew. The shards were collected, labelled, and sent to a university for analysis. The results, if they were ever completed, were never published. The workers, for their part, remembered one thing most clearly. The shards had been found embedded in what they described as the top of a strange dome, buried just beneath the soil. The official records list that dome as a limestone boulder, and yet each generation seemed to leave behind another small irregularity. In the 1970s, a surveying team using a rudimentary magnetometer recorded periodic spikes in the readings as they crossed the clearing. At first, they suspected interference from nearby electrical lines, except there were none. The anomaly appeared only within a specific circular area roughly 30 meters across. Outside that ring, the readings were entirely normal, the spikes repeated at regular intervals, a slow rhythm that matched almost exactly the hum you felt beneath your hand. A decade later, a local historian pieced together a map from fragments of old shepherds' journals. The hand-drawn sketches showed not only the surface terrain, but also markings of hollow ground, known by those who tended flocks there. In each of these accounts, the hollow ground was said to produce a faint vibration when stamped upon, as if the earth were thin. By the early 2000s, a handful of independent researchers, historians, geologists, and curious locals had begun quietly comparing notes. There was the perfect arc in the cave wall, the elliptical tunnel, the oxidized metal shards, the magnetic pulses, the hollow ground marked in shepherds' journals. Each clue, on its own, could be explained away, filed under coincidence or misunderstanding. Together they painted the faint outline of something far stranger. It was around this time that a team of volunteer cavers, working without any official sanction, ventured into one of the lesser-known limestone caves to map its passages. After hours underground, they discovered a dead-end tunnel, or what appeared to be one, whose smooth walls bore a strange texture, almost like the grain of wood, but metallic to the touch. They reported a faint warmth emanating from it, even though the air in the cave was cold enough to mist their breath. When they returned a week later with better equipment, the tunnel had collapsed, sealing the smooth walls from view. And then there were the stories told in whispers. One came from a man who claimed his grandfather had been part of an unofficial dig in the late 1940s, sent to explore a subsurface anomaly before the visitor centre was built. According to the story, they had unearthed what appeared to be a vast curved plate of metal, unmarked, cool to the touch despite the summer heat. When they struck it with a pick, the sound rang out. Not the sharp high note of iron, but a deep, resonant tone that seemed to hang in the air. Before they could dig further, the work was stopped by orders from higher up. The plate was reburied. The team was told never to speak of it. None of these things appear in the glossy pamphlets handed to visitors. The official history remains unchanged, polite and small, but in the margins, in the photographs tucked into misfiled folders, in the recollections passed down through families, in the unlabeled boxes in basement archives, the first cracks are there. When you think back to the clearing now, to the night you stood there and felt that hum, you see those cracks widening. You picture the graduate student staring at that photograph of the smooth cave wall. You see the explorers in 1938 walking through the elliptical tunnel, lantern-light glinting off its perfect curves. You imagine the workers in 1951 brushing soil away from the top of that buried dome, unaware they were touching something that might have been older than recorded history. And in your mind, the scattered fragments of these stories begin to align. Not in perfect clarity, not yet, but enough to feel the shape of something beneath them all, something that does not belong to the neat and narrow story told in books, something that has been there all along, hiding in plain sight, speaking only to those who pause long enough to listen, the hum beneath. The clearing was never mentioned in the official accounts, but you know now that others must have felt it too. Perhaps they didn't have the words to describe it. Perhaps they feared what it might mean. Perhaps they simply understood that some truths are too large to fit into the safe boundaries of accepted history. Whatever the reason, the clues remain, scattered, half-buried, waiting. And as you stand in the stillness of your memory, you realize that what you have felt is not an isolated mystery. It is the edge of a much greater one, stretching out beneath your feet deeper than you can yet imagine. The first time the evidence became impossible to dismiss, it came not from rumour or misfiled photographs, but from instruments that could not be accused of imagination. In the early 1990s, a geophysical survey was commissioned for an unrelated project, a plan to assess the land for possible agricultural development. The team brought ground-penetrating radar, a technology that was, at the time, still finding its way into archaeological work. Most of their scans showed exactly what they expected. Layers of soil, patches of limestone, pockets of air where caves had formed over the millennia. But then the machine gave them something it could not explain. Beneath the clearing, at a depth far beyond what any human structure in the region was believed to reach, appeared a pattern. Not a random scattering of reflections, but a clear, repeating geometry, concentric rings surrounding a central void. The rings were smooth, uniform in thickness, and perfectly circular, as though they had been machined. The technician who read the scans thought there must be an error. He recalibrated the equipment, scanned again from a different angle, and the same pattern emerged. When the data was processed and converted into a three-dimensional model, it revealed something even stranger. The central void was not empty, but filled with a material that returned almost no signal at all, as though it absorbed rather than reflected the radar waves. The report was filed, sent to the local authorities, and quietly shelved. The agricultural project was abandoned without explanation. Around the same time, a second discovery came from an entirely different direction. A metallurgist examining samples from the region, officially to study trace mineral deposits in the limestone, found within one core a thin, curved fragment embedded in the rock itself. Under the microscope, the fragment appeared to be made of a layered composite, alternating metallic and ceramic-like bands only microns thick. The composition did not match any naturally occurring alloy. Its surface bore no signs of corrosion, despite being entombed in stone for what geological dating suggested could be tens of thousands of years. When he presented his findings at a small conference, the metallurgist expected interest, perhaps even funding to investigate further. Instead, his paper was dismissed as an error in sampling. The core, he was told, must have been contaminated by modern debris. The fragment was returned to him without further comment. A few months later, his laboratory was broken into, and the fragment, along with the notes detailing its structure, was gone. Then came the recordings. In 2004, a group of amateur researchers, aware of the rumors surrounding the clearing, brought sensitive seismic microphones to the site. Their goal was simple: to measure microtremors in the earth, the kind usually caused by distant tectonic shifts or underground water movement. But what they captured was not random noise. It was a rhythmic pulse, low and steady, repeating every 12 seconds. When the recording was played back at higher speed, the pulses formed a pattern of rising and falling frequencies, like the slow turning of some colossal mechanism. The group posted their findings online. Within days, the website was taken down without explanation. Some of the researchers received formal warnings about trespassing on protected archaeological land, though they had never been told the area held such a designation. And still, more pieces surfaced. In 2011, a team using updated radar and magnetometry conducted a survey of the hills surrounding the clearing. Their instruments revealed vast linear structures deep beneath the surface, running parallel for hundreds of meters before curving sharply toward one another. The lines converged beneath the clearing itself, suggesting there were not natural fissures but part of a single, unified structure. The magnetic readings spiked along these lines, as though they carried or once carried a flow of energy. One of the team members leaked the preliminary data to a colleague overseas. That colleague compared it to known archaeological sites and could find no match, except, curiously, in the remains of massive industrial machines from the modern era. The scale was similar, the geometry precise, but according to every accepted model of history, there was no possibility that such a structure could exist here, buried in strata that predated even the earliest known civilizations. And yet, there it was, invisible to the naked eye but undeniable in the language of machines. The final piece, the one that still keeps you awake some nights when you think of the clearing, came from a drone flight in 2017. It was meant to be a simple aerial mapping for environmental study, capturing high-resolution images of the terrain. But when the images were processed with infrared, something emerged. A perfect circular temperature anomaly in the clearing. In the visible spectrum, it was just grass and soil. In infrared, the clearing glowed faintly warmer than the surrounding land, even in the cool of early morning. The warmth was not from the sun nor from any known geothermal source. It was as though something beneath the earth was generating its own steady heat, enough to be measured through meters of soil and stone. All these discoveries, the radar geometry, the composite fragment, the seismic pulse, the magnetic lines, the heat signature, pointed to the same conclusion. There is something beneath the clearing that cannot be explained by the official story. Something vast, something deliberate, something still active. Yet the reaction from the institutions that might investigate has been the same each time. Silence, dismissal, or quiet removal of the evidence. Reports vanish from archives, samples go missing, websites hosting data are taken down, and the clearing remains as it has always been, a patch of grass under the open sky, with nothing to betray its secret but the faint hum felt by those who dare to stand still and listen. You think back to that night, your palm pressed to the earth. You remember the way the hum seemed to match your breath, the way the warmth seeped into your skin. Now you know that others have felt it, measured it, even recorded it. Now you know that beneath the soil is not just the suggestion of a machine, but evidence of one. Evidence that has been erased again and again, as though some hand is determined to keep it hidden. And you begin to wonder, if all these anomalies have been found, if the shape and scale of the thing can already be guessed at, what more lies even deeper? What secrets remain untouched, sealed away by time and intent? And most haunting of all, why is it still running? Long before anyone brought radar machines or seismic microphones to the clearing, long before men in rolled-up sleeves dug shallow trenches and called their work complete, there were the stories. They came in the soft voices of elders by firelight, in the chants of festivals, in the whispers passed to children who would one day tell them again. To outsiders they were myths. To those who lived here, they were memory. The kind that lingers when written records are gone, the kind that clings to the land itself. In the villages scattered along the edge of the hills, the clearing has a name older than any map, the Sleeping Heart. It is not a poetic name, but a literal one, and it is always spoken with a certain respect. In the oldest versions of the tale, told in the language that once belonged to these hills, the Sleeping Heart is not merely part of the earth. It is a being, not alive in the way trees and animals are, but alive all the same, built, not born, yet enduring for ages. The elders say the heart was placed here before the first dawn, when the world was still shaping itself. The sky then, they say, was closer to the ground, and the rivers ran in different paths. Those who came before, not human, not quite gods, made the heart to keep the world turning. No one explains how. No one knows what might happen if it stops. It is enough to know that it has never stopped. There is a saying among the old herders, when the heart falters, the sky will fall. It is not said with fear, but with the same matter-of-factness as a weather warning. Children grow up hearing it, though most never set foot in the clearing itself. Some are told not to go near it at all. Others are told that if they lie down in the grass there, they will feel the heart's breath through the ground. One man, now long gone, once told a researcher that his grandmother had taken him to the edge of the clearing when he was a boy. She made him close his eyes and press his ear to the soil. At first he heard nothing but the wind. Then, slowly, the hum came to him, a low, steady sound that seemed to rise from the deep. His grandmother told him, "It is older than the mountains. It will be here when they are dust." Another story speaks of the feeders, figures who, in the time before time, came down from the sky to tend to the heart. They would descend in columns of light, carrying gifts of metal and stone, lowering them into the earth through doors that no longer exist. Once their work was done, they would seal the doors with slabs of unbroken rock. The last of them, the story says, left with the promise that the heart would sleep until the world needed it again. A few legends are darker. One tells of a man who tried to break into the heart. In this version, he was a king from a far-off land, seeking to claim its power. He brought with him hundreds of workers to dig, but as they reached the surface of the heart, a great sound rose from it, like a drum struck in the depths of the earth, and the ground shook so violently that the diggers fled. The king returned home empty-handed, and within a season his kingdom fell to ruin. Among the fishermen who work the distant rivers, there is a belief that the tides are tied to the heart's rhythm. They claim that in certain quiet moments, when the water is still and the air is heavy, you can feel a faint vibration in the wooden hulls of their boats, the same pulse as in the clearing. One old fisherman laughed when asked about it, saying, "You don't go looking for the heart. It's already in everything." When the first missionaries came to these hills centuries ago, they recorded some of these stories, though they often twisted them to fit their own beliefs. In their writings, the heart became a buried idol or a devil's drum, and they encouraged the people to forget it. Yet even in those altered accounts, the core of the legend remains. Something is here, something that has always been here. Travellers passing through sometimes hear snatches of these tales in the markets or at the edge of a field. Most dismiss them as the kind of rural superstition that clings to remote places. But for those who grew up here, the heart is not superstition. It is part of the landscape, as real as the hills and the rivers, as constant as the turning of the seasons. Even now, in the age of electricity and satellites, the story of the sleeping heart persists. A schoolteacher in a nearby town tells her students not to speak too loudly when passing the clearing. An old woman in a faded shawl leaves offerings of grain at the edge each autumn to keep the heart warm for winter. A shepherd who grazes his flock near the hills says he has seen lights in the clearing on moonless nights, faint and white, like the glow of embers under ash. And sometimes, when researchers or curious strangers arrive asking about the place, the locals smile and shake their heads. "You'll find nothing," they say. But their eyes hold something else. Not fear exactly, but a reluctance to share what they know with those who will only try to measure it, dissect it, explain it away. One of the most haunting versions of the tale comes from a fragment of an old song, recorded on a crackling tape decades ago. The voice, quavering but steady, sings in a dialect now barely spoken. It sleeps beneath the fields of green, with breath of fire, with bones unseen. It turns the wheel, it keeps the day, until the stars are swept away. The words are simple, but they carry the weight of centuries. You can almost imagine them sung beside a fire, the flames flickering in the faces of those listening, the shadows dancing on the walls. When you stand in the clearing now in your memory, you hear those lines echoing. The hum beneath your feet feels not just mechanical, but ceremonial, as though it has been honoured for so long that its rhythm is woven into the life of the land. The grass sways gently in the breeze, and you find yourself wondering if every blade is moving to that same deep, steady pulse. The official history has no room for such stories, yet the stories endure, and perhaps they endure because they are not entirely stories. Perhaps they are a record, not written in ink on parchment, but carried in song and spoken word, surviving because the truth they hold is too important to be lost. And in the quiet, you feel it again, that the heart is not a thing of the past, not a relic or a ruin. It is here, now, under your feet, just as the elders said. It has been here since before the first dawn, and it will be here when the stars are swept away. The more you hear the sleeping heart, the more its echoes seem to reach far beyond these hills. At first the stories feel rooted here alone, the warmth in the earth, the steady hum, the belief that it turns the world's wheel. But the deeper you look, the more you see patterns, parallels, threads that stretch across oceans and centuries. You realize the heart is not alone in legend. Other places far from here hold stories that hum the same strange note. Thousands of miles away on the high plateau of the Andes, there is a ruin the locals call the Forge of Pachacuti. Officially, it is described as an unfinished ceremonial site, its massive blocks of dark stone abandoned mid-carving. Yet the Quechua elders speak of it differently. They say the stone was not carved at all, but moulded, shaped when it was soft by a heat not of the sun. Beneath the forge, they say, is a chamber no one has entered in living memory, a chamber said to hold the breath maker, a device that keeps the mountain winds moving, the rivers flowing. The words are different, but the idea is the same. Something built before humans, still working in silence. In the deserts of Egypt, long before tourists stood in the shadow of the pyramids, Bedouin nomads told of the undersun, a machine buried deep in the sands that turns the days. They say when you stand above it in the hottest part of summer, you can feel heat rising through the soles of your feet. Not the heat of the sun, but something deeper, steadier, untouched by wind or weather. A 19th century explorer wrote in his journal about a patch of sand that sank faintly under my boot, as though it was stretched over something hollow. His notes, like so many others, were set aside, overshadowed by more glamorous finds. In the frozen expanse of Siberia, hunters speak of the Valley of the Death, where strange metallic domes break the surface of the tundra. The domes are smooth, curved, and warm even in the bitter cold. Local Yakut legends say these are sleeping ones, not beings, but machines that will wake when the world is in danger. Some believe they are connected to the stars. Others say they are part of the earth itself. Few dare to go near them, for those who sleep there too long have been known to sicken and die, as if the domes resent being disturbed. Far across the Pacific in Micronesia, there is the island of Nan Madol, a labyrinth of basalt walls and canals, built with stones weighing more than most cranes can lift today. The official story is that the stones were floated on rafts or rolled over logs, but local myth says they were sung into place by forces within the earth. Some island elders whisper that beneath Nan Madol lies a dark heart that hums like the sea in a storm. It is said the builders came not from the surrounding islands, but from a land that sank beneath the waves long before the first canoe crossed the ocean. Even in the frozen silence of Antarctica, where little grows and fewer still have ever set foot, there are whispers among those who have spent seasons there. Researchers speak carefully and off the record of reading inexplicable heat anomalies under miles of ice, perfect circles, warmer than their surroundings, too symmetrical to be natural. Officially, they're dismissed as geothermal vents, yet in quiet moments, when the wind howls and the ice groans, some say it feels like the land itself is breathing. The names change. The Breathmaker, the Undersun, the Sleeping Ones, the Dark Heart. But the patterns repeat. Always there is something hidden beneath the surface, something vast and deliberate. Always it is older than recorded history, its purpose unclear but ongoing. And always the stories speak of a connection between the hidden machine and the cycles of the natural world. Tides, winds, seasons, even the turning of the earth itself. It makes you wonder, are these coincidences, separate myths born of separate landscapes? Or are they fragments of a greater whole, pieces of a single memory scattered across cultures and centuries like shards of a broken mirror? If the heart beneath this clearing is real, could it be part of something larger? A network, perhaps, of ancient machines, each hidden in a different corner of the world, each serving some unseen purpose. You recall the magnetic lines found in the hills, converging beneath the clearing. What if those lines do not end here, but continue outward, connecting to other points, other hearts, in a pattern that spans the globe? The thought is dizzying, the scale almost too large to imagine. And yet, the stories from the Andes, Egypt, Siberia, Micronesia, Antarctica, they hum with the same rhythm you felt in your chest that night in the clearing. Some researchers, the kind whose work is rarely published in mainstream journals, have tried to map these sites. They speak of alignments that defy chance. A line from the Forge of Pachacuti to Nan Madol to the Valley of the Death passes almost directly beneath this clearing. Another line runs from the Egyptian desert through the Siberian tundra to the southern ice. Where these lines intersect, there are often places marked in local law as sacred or forbidden. Places where the ground feels warm when it shouldn't, where the air seems to vibrate in stillness. The idea is not new. Ancient maps, some real, some apocryphal, have long hinted at lands and structures lost to time. In one 15th century chart preserved in a Portuguese library, a small mark appears in the centre of a green plain, labelled in Latin, Cor Dormiant, the sleeping heart. The mark is nearly in the same place as the clearing. The map's origin is disputed, but its presence is difficult to ignore, and so, standing here in your mind's eye, you realise the clearing is not just an isolated mystery. It is part of a chorus, a low, steady hum that has been singing through the bones of the earth for as long as the world has turned. You can almost hear the voices of other lands in that hum, as if each hidden machine is speaking to the others in a language too deep for human ears. The official histories of each place remain stubbornly small, contained, manageable. But in the spaces between those histories, in the legends of the locals, in the anomalies found by accident, in the patterns that emerge when you dare to look, the truth breathes, and it is vast. The wind stirs in the clearing. The grass moves like the ripples of a far-off sea. You imagine that movement spreading outward, across plains, across oceans, through deserts and forests and ice, until it reaches the other hearts, wherever they sleep. The world, it seems, is stitched together by something unseen, something ancient, buried, and still alive, and if one heart could be woken, you wonder what might happen to them all. The first explanations always come from the safe corners of thought. Geologists say the hum could be the slow settling of limestone, the shift of water through hidden channels, or the echo of distant seismic activity travelling through the bedrock. Engineers suggest it might be a natural resonance caused by wind funneled into underground cavities, creating a sound that feels deeper than it is. These are the kinds of answers that fit neatly into textbooks and lectures. Tidy, contained, not dangerous. Archaeologists, when pressed, lean on the familiar language of coincidence. The smooth surfaces found in caves, natural abrasion, they say, polished by centuries of underground water flow. The curved tunnels, erosion following fault lines, the magnetic anomalies, variations in mineral content, and the warmth in the soil, the lingering touch of sunlight stored in the earth. Each answer is delivered with quiet confidence, as though it should end the conversation. But then there are those who refuse to be satisfied. Some speak of the heart as the work of an advanced civilization that lived here long before the cultures we know. People who had mastered not only stone and metal, but the deep engineering of the earth itself. They suggest the heart is a machine designed to regulate something fundamental: climate, tides, perhaps even the rotation of the planet. To them, the hum is not a side effect, but the sound of the machine at work, steady and unbroken, performing its task for tens of thousands of years. Others push the timeline even further back, beyond the memory of humanity altogether. They imagine the heart as a relic of a world before ours, built by beings whose minds and hands were shaped by a different sun, a different sky. Perhaps they were not human at all. Perhaps they were visitors from the stars, placing these machines across the globe as seeds in the soil, meant to grow only when the time was right. There are also those who link the heart to the idea of a cyclical history, civilizations rising and falling in waves across deep time. In this telling, we're not the first to build great machines, nor will we be the last. Each age inherits the bones of the one before it, often without realizing. The heart, they say, is a survivor from one such age, left behind because it still serves its purpose, waiting for its next caretakers to remember how to tend it. A few theories turn toward the spiritual. To them, the heart is not just a machine, but a bridge between the material and the unseen. They say its hum is a form of communication, not with us, but with the earth itself. It speaks in vibrations, in patterns too vast for the human mind to fully hear. The warmth you felt in the clearing, they say, is not heat as we know it, but a kind of energy that nourishes the land, the plants, the sky above. And then there are the most unsettling theories of all. These suggest the heart is not working for us at all. Perhaps it is not a benevolent machine keeping the world turning, but a mechanism for its own survival. Perhaps it draws energy from the planet, or even from the life that lives on it. In this version, the hum is not the sound of protection, but the sound of feeding. Those who hold this view point to the rare accounts of sickness or strange dreams experienced by those who linger too long in the clearing. They speak of headaches, of metallic tastes in the mouth, of hearing the hum even miles away in the days that follow. They suggest that the heart might one day wake fully, not because we have called it, but because it chooses to. Between these extremes lies a more measured speculation, that the heart is both mechanical and natural, a hybrid of technology and geology. In this idea, It is less a machine in the modern sense, and more like a living structure, grown and guided rather than built. Its hum could be the sound of its own slow repair, its warmth the byproduct of internal processes no human has yet understood. The challenge with all these theories is the same: proof. The official institutions demand it, but when pieces of proof emerge, a scan, a fragment, a recording, they vanish or are discredited before they can be studied openly. This has only deepened the belief among some that the truth about the heart is being deliberately kept from the public. Why? Here too, opinions diverge. Some think the reason is simple self-preservation, that revealing such a machine would upend everything we believe about our past, forcing history books to be rewritten. Others suspect a more pragmatic motive. If the heart can be controlled, it might offer power beyond imagining, and those who know of it would rather keep that possibility to themselves. You find yourself caught between these currents of thought. The official explanations feel too small now, too quick to dismiss what you've seen and felt. But the more fantastic theories seem too large, their edges blurring into the realms of myth. And yet the hum beneath your feet, the warmth in the soil, they are real. You cannot explain them away. Perhaps, you think, the truth lies somewhere between the two poles, not a simple geological quirk, not a God-built engine, but something that carries the fingerprints of both nature and intelligence. Something that was placed here, or grew here, for reasons we have yet to grasp. The clearing drifts into your mind again. The moonlight on the grass, the way the air felt heavier as you approached the center, the steady rhythm under your hand. It is one thing to read a theory in a book or hear it spoken aloud. It is another to stand on the place itself, to feel the land breathe beneath you. That is the kind of knowing that resists tidy answers, and maybe that is why the heart remains what it is, a mystery that refuses to collapse into certainty. Too much proof, and it would become just another entry in a database, its wonder stripped away. Too little, and it would fade into the realm of superstition, dismissed entirely. Instead, it exists in that thin, powerful space between, where facts and myth touch, where speculation feels like a kind of truth, where the earth hums, and we do not know why. You wonder, not for the first time, if the heart itself prefers it this way. If you trace the history of discoveries around the sleeping heart, you begin to notice a strange pattern, not just the anomalies themselves, but what happens to them afterward. A photograph misfiled and forgotten, a radar scan locked away in a drawer, a fragment of unknown metal stolen from a lab, a website taken offline without explanation. None of these events by themselves would raise much suspicion, but together over decades they begin to form a shadowed outline. Those who speak of the heart openly often find their voices quieted. Sometimes it's subtle. A research grant quietly withdrawn. An article declined by a journal without clear reason. Sometimes it's more direct. In the early 2000s, a small independent team attempted to publish their findings from seismic readings taken at the clearing. Within weeks, 2 members received legal notices claiming they had trespassed on protected heritage land. They were threatened with heavy fines if they returned. When they asked who had declared the land protected, the answer was vague, buried in bureaucratic language about sensitive archaeological sites. One local historian tells a story about being approached by 2 well-dressed men after he gave a lecture mentioning the heart's hum. They didn't threaten him outright, but their message was clear. This was not a subject he should continue to discuss. Within a month, His university closed his department's funding. He retired quietly a year later. In the archives, the signs are more subtle but no less telling. Boxes of excavation notes from the 1920s contain gaps, missing pages where descriptions of unusual surfaces should be. Catalogue numbers for certain artifacts skip ahead, as if something has been removed. In one case, a curator admitted privately that she had handled a fragment of metal unlike anything else in the collection. She was told to send it to a research facility for further study. She never saw it again. Even the land itself seems to have been wrapped in quiet restrictions. While the surrounding fields are open for grazing, the clearing has been fenced off for conservation. Officially, the reason is to protect the soil from erosion. But no public excavation has been allowed there in decades, and permits to conduct any kind of underground scanning are routinely denied. When asked why, authorities simply repeat that the area is ecologically sensitive. Some suspect the suppression is not purely local. Certain documents relating to the Harz region have been marked in national archives with higher than usual clearance levels, not because they contain military information, but because they are classified as cultural security. The phrase is rare, and its definition is vague. Researchers have argued over its meaning, but the effect is the same: access denied. Of course, there are those who dismiss these patterns as coincidence. Bureaucracies are slow and clumsy, they say. Papers go missing, data is misplaced, permissions get tangled in red tape. But the people who have stood in the clearing, who have felt the hum, who have seen the way certain findings vanish, are less convinced. Too many accidents, they say, to be accidental. The question, then, is why? One theory is protection, that those in power believe the heart is too important to risk damage from careless hands. If it is a machine, still functioning after millennia, the wrong interference could break it. Better to keep it untouched, hidden, working quietly in the dark. Another theory is fear. If the heart's true nature became public, it could shatter the official timeline of human history. The idea that something so advanced exists beneath the earth, predating known civilizations, would demand a rewriting of everything we think we know. The institutions that guard history might see that as too dangerous, too destabilizing for society to handle. And then there is the theory of control. If the heart is more than legend, if it is indeed part of a network or system with unknown capabilities, whoever understands it first would hold something beyond value. In this light, the suppression is not about protecting the heart from the world, but about keeping the world from the heart until the right hands or the right moment arrive. Some locals whisper that the clearing has already been visited in secret. They speak of unmarked trucks arriving in the dead of night, of strange equipment carried into the grass and removed hours later. One farmer claims to have seen lights under the trees bordering the clearing, as though something beneath the ground was glowing faintly. When he returned the next day, there was no trace of disturbance, only the same swaying grass and the same endless hum. The suppression is not total. Small fragments of truth still slip through the cracks. A photograph shared online before it's taken down, a set of readings copied to a private hard drive, a half-forgotten story passed from one researcher to another over coffee. But these fragments are never enough to form the whole picture. They are pieces of the puzzle scattered across decades, guarded by silence. You think about the people who must know more, the archivists who handled the missing artifacts, the scientists whose data was locked away, the officials who sign the conservation orders. How many of them, you wonder, have stood in the clearing themselves? How many have felt the warmth in the soil and heard the hum in their bones? Do they too feel that strange pull to protect it, even as they keep it hidden? In the end, the suppression is almost as much a part of the heart's story as the hum itself. The silence surrounding it has become a kind of shield, wrapping it in obscurity. It is a silence heavy with intent, a silence that says, "Not yet, not for everyone, not now." But silence is not the same as stillness. The heart continues to beat beneath the earth, steady and unbroken, while above, the grass sways in the wind as though nothing lies beneath. And somewhere, in locked rooms and guarded files, the story is being written. Not the story told in museums or guidebooks, but the one that waits for the day the silence breaks. And when that day comes, you wonder, will we be ready for what wakes? The history of the sleeping heart is not just told in myths or buried in quiet suppression. It is also written in the strange and unfinished journeys of those who tried to uncover it. These are the stories of expeditions that began with ambition and curiosity, only to vanish into the gaps between records, leaving behind fragments of journals, rumours, and whispered accounts that refuse to fade. The earliest of these tales belongs to 1938, a year when the hills were quieter, the world's attention fixed elsewhere. A maverick archaeologist named Elias Caro arrived with a small team and a handful of hired labourers. Caro was not well loved by the academic establishment. His tendency to chase impossible histories, as his peers called them, had cost him both funding and reputation. But it also gave him a stubborn independence, and when a shepherd told him of a patch of ground that breathed like a sleeping beast, he could not resist. Caro's journal from those months is incomplete, but what remains is telling. The early entries are almost casual, notes on the limestone bed, sketches of cave openings, a tally of artifacts found near the surface. But as the pages go on, his tone shifts. In one entry, written in hurried strokes, he describes breaking into a chamber beneath the clearing. The walls, he wrote, were not stone, not metal, but something between, smooth as glass, yet warm to the touch. He claimed that when he pressed his hand to the surface, the entire wall seemed to vibrate faintly, as if something on the other side was moving slowly, breathing in deep. The journal ends abruptly 2 days later with a single line, "It isn't dead." Caro and his team vanished soon after. Local rumour holds that they left in the night, abandoning their camp without packing their supplies. Officially, the expedition was said to have been cut short by illness. No one ever found Caro's missing notes. 2 decades later, in the summer of 1957, a pair of amateur spelunkers, brothers named Johann and Marek Vass, followed an unmarked fissure into the base of the southern hill. According to a friend they told before their disappearance, the tunnel they entered led them to a vast chamber whose ceiling arched high above, supported by pillars not of stone but of some dark metallic substance. In the centre of the chamber, they claimed, was a circular opening leading downward into darkness, from which a steady warmth rose. They planned to return with ropes and better equipment, but never did. The friend who knew their route found the fissure sealed with rubble a week later, as though by a deliberate hand. In the early 1970s, a military geologist named Captain Renault was sent to survey the area for potential water sources. His notes, later smuggled out by a colleague, mentioned detecting an unusually regular subsurface formation. concentric layers surrounding what he called a hollow core. Intrigued, he and 2 soldiers began digging without official clearance. After 3 days, they stopped. His final field report, stripped of detail in the official version, survived in his private diary. "The ground moved under me. It's alive, or it's made to seem alive. Either way, I'm done." Renaud never spoke of it again, and within months he was reassigned to a post far from the hills. Perhaps the most haunting of these forgotten expeditions happened in 1986. A university-led research trip included a young student named Layla, whose fascination with the myths of the region made her an eager volunteer for the long days of fieldwork. According to a fellow student, Layla became fixated on a small depression in the clearing, insisting it was the entrance to something deeper. One afternoon, she followed it alone, carrying only a flashlight and a small pack. She did not return for dinner. A search party found no trace of her, no footprints beyond the depression, no signs of struggle. The only clue was her pack, neatly placed beside the grass containing her notebook. The last page held a single sentence: "It's so much bigger than I thought." The university declared her lost in an accident, perhaps having fallen into an unseen crevice. But the locals who knew the clearing better than anyone said there was no crevice there. There never had been. And still, the pattern repeats. In 2009, a pair of drone hobbyists captured infrared footage of the clearing that showed not just the well-known central heat signature, but smaller moving points of warmth tracing slow arcs around it. They planned to investigate the next day, but that night their storage drives were stolen from their home. The footage they posted online hours before the theft was quickly taken down by the platform for security reasons. The strangest of all is a rumor from the winter of 2014. A man in a nearby town claimed to have seen a group of 6 people in heavy coats entering the clearing just after midnight. They carried no lights, yet he said they walked with purpose, as if they knew exactly where they were going. The grass was heavy with frost, and their footprints were visible in the morning, but only leading in. There were none leading out. Each of these stories exists like a bone protruding from the soil, a small visible part of something larger, buried. Together they hint at a history of contact with the heart that is far more direct than the official record would admit. They suggest that people have touched it, entered spaces around it, even stood at its surface. They suggest that some have gone further and not returned. What connects these expeditions is not just their abrupt endings, but the way they fade from the record. The people vanish into other lives, into reassignment, into silence. Their notes disappear, their photographs are lost, their names become little more than murmurs in the mouths of those who remember them. And through it all, the heart remains. You imagine Caro leaning against that warm, smooth wall. You picture the Vass brothers staring into that dark, downward opening. You see Layla's careful handwriting in her notebook, those last words written in haste before she set it aside. And you feel a strange kinship with them, not because you have gone where they went, but because you too have felt the pull. The pull is not just curiosity, it is something deeper, something almost like recognition. Standing in the clearing, you felt it as surely as they must have, the sense that whatever lies beneath is aware, in some way, of those who notice it, that it waits not for everyone, but for certain people to listen closely enough to hear its breath. And you wonder how many others have stood there before you, hearing that hum, feeling that warmth, and thinking, just for a moment, of going down into the earth to find it. In the present day, the mystery of the sleeping heart has not vanished. If anything, it has grown quieter and sharper, like the last note of a bell ringing endlessly under the surface. New tools have entered the search: satellites, drones, high-resolution ground scans, and with them have come new fragments of evidence. Each piece adds to the shape of the hidden thing beneath the clearing, yet none is allowed to form the full picture. The first modern breakthrough came in 2016, when a small independent geological survey team brought portable ground-penetrating radar to the outskirts of the clearing. Their permit allowed them to scan only adjacent agricultural land, but they skirted the official boundary by setting their equipment at the very edge of the grass. The radar returned an image that froze them in place. Beneath the surface, less than 20 meters away, was the faint curve of a perfect circle. It wasn't rock, it wasn't soil. The material reflected the signal with the crisp, sharp return of something solid and uniform, almost metallic. They overlaid the radar map with topographical data, and the circle aligned exactly with the central heat signature, later confirmed by infrared imaging. The team wanted to push the scan deeper into the clearing, but before they could, a white utility vehicle arrived. Two men stepped out, not aggressive, but firm. "You're in a restricted research zone," one said. "Pack your equipment and leave." When asked for identification, they produced none, only repeated the instruction. The survey team packed up. The images they'd taken still circulate privately among trusted colleagues, a ghost of a discovery that might have been. In 2018, a university in another country released a series of thermal images from a satellite sweep of the region. The images were intended to study soil moisture and vegetation health, but buried in the data was the same anomaly: a circular patch of ground consistently warmer than its surroundings, regardless of season or time of day. The warmth was not enough to be felt by a passerby in winter, but from above, the pattern was unmistakable. The moment the anomaly was flagged in an academic forum, the dataset was temporarily withdrawn for verification. When it returned weeks later, the relevant image was gone. A year later, a drone operator with an interest in unexplained sights flew a thermal camera over the hills at dawn. What he captured was stranger still. In addition to the well-known central heat glow, there were faint lines radiating outward, like spokes of a wheel, some stretching for hundreds of meters before fading into the forest. These lines were cooler than the clearing itself, yet they were so straight, so deliberate, that they did not match any known geological feature. The footage was posted online. Within 48 hours, the account hosting it was deleted. By 2020, attention had shifted toward magnetic mapping. A small research collective, scientists and engineers working under no official funding, carried handheld magnetometers across the perimeter of the clearing. The readings told the same story that had surfaced decades earlier: a rhythmic, pulsing variation in the magnetic field, repeating every 12 seconds. More intriguingly, the strength of the variation increased when they moved toward the center, as though they were approaching the source of a signal. The amplitude was small but consistent. It behaved like the field of a machine that was active but running at low power. One of the collective's engineers fed the data into a model designed to analyze rotating systems. The pattern, she concluded, was not random. "If I didn't know better," she said in a recording later leaked to a private channel, "I'd say we're looking at the cycle of a slow-moving generator. something turning down there, steady as a heartbeat. In 2022, LIDAR scanning, a technique that uses lasers to build precise 3D models of terrain, was deployed by a private archaeology company hired for a completely different project several kilometers away. When the company's director saw the subtle depressions in the clearing revealed by the LIDAR's sweep, she recognized the telltale signs of subsurface structures. Faint arcs, perfectly concentric, almost too precise to be natural. When she requested permission to conduct a focused scan over the site, the response was curt, denied on grounds of cultural sensitivity. More recently, in 2024, a collaborative project between amateur radio enthusiasts stumbled on something even more unusual. While testing long-range reception in the hills, they detected a narrow band signal that seemed to originate from directly beneath the clearing. It was faint, almost drowned in background noise, but it carried a repeating sequence. 3 bursts, a pause, 3 bursts again. The same rhythm that others had felt in their bones when standing on the grass. They were certain it was not a broadcast from any surface transmitter. The triangulation placed it dozens of meters underground. No official body has acknowledged these findings, but in the shadows of academic circles, in encrypted chats and private file exchanges, the data circulates. The patterns match. The warmth, the magnetic rhythm, the concentric geometry, the radiating lines, all of it points to something deliberate and active beneath the clearing. And yet, the mystery remains locked away. Every time a new scan or image emerges, it is met with either quiet disappearance or public dismissal. The official stance, repeated like a mantra, is that the clearing is simply an ecologically sensitive area above natural limestone formations, nothing more. You think of the tools we have now, the satellites that can see through clouds, the instruments that can map the ground in layers. You think of how easy it would be, in a purely technical sense, to know the truth. But truth here is not a matter of capability, it is a matter of permission, and permission is not given. Still, you cannot help but wonder about the researchers who gather these glimpses and hold them in their private archives. Do they lie awake at night, listening to their own heartbeat, remembering the hum they recorded? Do they feel the same pull you do? The sense that something beneath the earth is waiting, and that each passing year brings us closer to the moment when it will no longer be silent. The clearing remains unchanged to the eye, a circle of grass under the open sky, swaying in the wind. But you know now that just beneath that surface lies a geometry mapped in pulses and heat, and lines too straight to be anything but designed. You know that the hum is not only felt in the body, but measured in the air, the soil, the magnetic field. And you know, because the evidence says so, again and again, that whatever lies there is not dead. What if we are not the first? What if everything we think of as the beginning, the first spark struck from stone, the first lines carved into clay, the first cities rising from mud and timber, are only the beginning of our chapter, not the first chapter of the book? We've walked the earth believing that time flows in a straight line, that our story started small and has been building toward the present. But standing in that clearing, feeling the steady hum beneath our feet, we begin to wonder if time moves in cycles instead. If great ages have risen and fallen long before our own, leaving behind only fragments buried so deep that most will never know they exist. We felt it together, you and I, that strange warmth in the soil, the slow pulse like a hidden heartbeat. We stood there, the wind moving through the grass above while something unseen moved below. And in that moment, we were not just standing on the ground, we were standing on the threshold of another world, one so old that it lies beyond memory, beyond history, beyond the reach of our language. If the heart is real, if it is part of a network of ancient machines scattered across the earth, then our understanding of the planet is incomplete. The rivers, the tides, the winds, the turning of the seasons. What if these are not entirely the work of nature? What if they are tuned, maintained, guided by something left behind by those who came before? We tell ourselves we are the caretakers of this world, but what if we are only its tenants, living in the ruins of a greater age? What if the heart still runs because its builders wanted it to? Because without it, the balance we take for granted would slip away. And then the harder question, what happens if it stops? We have no manual for it, no key to open it, no instructions written on the walls of its hidden chambers. If it truly keeps the world turning in ways we do not understand, then we live in a kind of borrowed time, one that could end not with a bang, but with a silence so deep that nothing grows again. But there is another possibility, one that pulls at the imagination even as it unsettles the heart. What if the heart is not only a machine of maintenance, but a machine of awakening? What if its hum is not the sound of endless work, but the sound of preparation, a slow gathering of energy for something yet to come? Perhaps it waits for a signal. Perhaps it waits for the alignment of the stars, or the shifting of the Earth's magnetic field, or the return of something long absent. Perhaps it waits for us, for the moment we finally notice it, acknowledge it, and try to understand it. If that is true, then every generation that has stood in the clearing, every hand that has pressed to the ground and felt the hum, has been part of that awakening without even knowing it. We have been speaking to it in the only language it understands, attention. It is strange to think that the heart might know we are here. Stranger still to imagine that it has always known. We, the inheritors of cities and machines and wires that span the globe, pride ourselves on our progress. But the heart humbles us. It reminds us that the earth is old, and that intelligence, whether human or not, has walked here before. It makes us ask questions we cannot yet answer. How long has it been running? Who built it? Where did they go? And what will it do next? Perhaps there are others like us scattered across the world who have found their own clearings, their own buried hearts. Perhaps they too stand in silence, wondering if they are alone in this knowledge. If the heart is part of a network, then we are not isolated. We are connected, not just to the machine, but to each other, through the invisible lines that link these sleeping giants beneath our feet. We imagine them waking, one by one, not in a roar of machinery, but in a deep, steady change, the kind you feel in your bones before you see it in the sky. We imagine the hum growing stronger, its rhythm matching our own, until we are no longer just listeners, but participants. And maybe that is the greatest what if of all. Not what if the heart is real, but what if the heart is waiting for us to remember it? We stand together now in our minds at the center of the clearing. The grass brushes against our legs. The air is still, as though holding its breath. Beneath us, the hum is patient. It has been patient for longer than we can comprehend. It does not rush us. It does not demand. It simply waits. And we, standing here, begin to understand that this is not the end of the mystery. This is the beginning of our part in it. Because if the heart is awake enough to hum, then it is awake enough to listen. And tonight, in the quiet, we are speaking to it. Not with words, but with the simple act of being here, together, aware. What if this moment is the first knock on a door that has been closed for ages? What if it knocks back? You are here again. The night has not changed, though you know time has passed. The same moon hangs low, silver and watchful. The same grass bends in the same soft wind. The same circle of earth spreads out before you, as quiet as a held breath. You take a step forward, and the sound of your footfall is swallowed by the silence. Another step, and another, until you reach the place where you once pressed your palm to the soil. The air feels different here, heavier, but not in a way that burdens you. It is a weight that settles into you slowly, the way water soaks into dry earth. You kneel and place your hand flat against the ground. The hum greets you like an old friend, steady, familiar, patient. It rises from below, not through your ears, but through your bones. You feel it in your fingertips, in your wrists, in the slow rhythm of your own heartbeat. It is not louder than before, not faster, but it feels closer now, as if you and it have moved toward each other in ways you cannot see. The warmth is there too, subtle but unmistakable. Not the warmth of sunlight lingering in the earth, but something deeper, self-made. You imagine it travelling upward through layers of soil and stone, escaping just enough to touch the skin of the world above. It's almost comforting, this quiet heat, like the presence of a fire in the next room. The wind stirs, it moves through the grass, carrying the faintest scent of something metallic, almost sweet. You close your eyes and let the night wrap around you. There is no sound here but the wind above and the hum below. It is as though the world has narrowed to these two voices, singing in harmony, one high and airy, one low and endless. You think of all the people who might have stood here before you, the shepherds who marked the hollow ground on their hand-drawn maps, the elders who told children never to walk through the clearing alone, the explorers who felt the hum and wrote their words before vanishing from the record. You imagine their footprints pressed into the soil, layer upon layer, now hidden but still here. The clearing feels like a place that holds memory, not just of people, but of itself. The grass that grows here seems older somehow, its blades a deeper green. The earth beneath is firmer, as though shaped by the presence of what lies below. You can almost sense the curve of it, that hidden shell of smooth, seamless surface resting in the dark, holding secrets in its hollow core. You try to picture the space inside. Is it empty, waiting to be filled, or is it already alive with a movement, with a slow turning of unseen parts? Does it have corridors, chambers, patterns carved into its walls? Or is it a single vast shape, perfect and whole? A thought comes to you unbidden. It is listening. You cannot explain why you feel this so strongly, but it's there, an awareness beneath the hum. Not watching, exactly. Not probing, just aware. You breathe slowly, letting the air move in and out, matching the steady rhythm beneath your hand. In, outside, in, outside. The more you sink yourself to it, the less it feels like two separate beats. Yours and the heart's merge until you can no longer tell where one ends and the other begins. Somewhere behind you, the trees stand dark against the horizon. Beyond them, the hills rise and fall like sleeping forms under a blanket of night. It is easy to believe that there might be more beneath them, more shapes, more hidden hearts, all connected by lines we cannot see. The longer you remain here, the more the clearing feels less like a location and more like a threshold. You're not just standing above something buried, you're standing with it. The earth is not a barrier so much as a skin, and beneath it something is breathing with you. The urge to speak rises in you, not to ask questions, you know there will be no answer in words, but to say something simple, something that crosses the barrier between you. You whisper, "I'm here." The sound is swallowed almost instantly by the open air, but the hum remains, steady, unshaken. And maybe that is the answer. The night deepens. The moon slips behind a thin veil of cloud, dimming the silver light to a softer glow. Shadows blend with the grass, and the edges of the clearing blur. You can no longer tell where the land ends and the sky begins. The hum feels louder in the dark, not because it has changed, but because you have. The stillness sharpens your senses until it fills you completely. You wonder if this is how it began for the others, not with a sudden discovery, but with nights like this, standing in the quiet, letting the heart become part of them. Maybe this is why so many came and never returned. Not because they were lost, but because they chose to follow that pull downward into the deep where the hum is strongest. You open your eyes again, and the clearing is the same as it has always been. Grass, wind, moonlight. And yet nothing about it is ordinary anymore. You know what lies beneath. You have felt it, heard it, matched your breath to it. You carry it now, and it will not leave you. You stand slowly, the hum still in your body like a low note that never fades. The night air feels cooler as you step back toward the edge of the clearing, but you glance over your shoulder before leaving. The grass sways gently, the circle holding its secret in plain sight. And you realize something important. The heart does not need you to find it. It has been here far longer than you have walked the earth, and it will remain long after. But perhaps it welcomes being found in its own way. You take one last deep breath, feeling the rhythm below one more time. Then you step away, carrying it with you into the dark. The path away from the clearing feels different than the one that brought you here. The night folds around you like a blanket, heavy and soft. The hum still lingers in your body, not just as a sound, but as a sensation, a presence threaded into the rhythm of your breath. With each step you feel the weight of what you've touched, what you've stood above, what you've felt without seeing. You walk slowly, not because the ground is uneven, but because you know you're leaving something behind. Not in the physical sense. The heart is still there, still breathing in the dark beneath its shell, but in the way you are leaving a moment that can never be repeated in quite the same way. The first meeting, the first touch, the first recognition. These things cannot be undone, and they cannot be done again. The trees loom closer now, their branches swaying just enough to break the silver lines of moonlight. Beyond them, the hills lie still, their curves like the resting shapes of giants beneath a woven cover of shadow. You wonder, as you did before, if they hide more than they show. Perhaps there are other hearts under other slopes, all beating together in a slow, invisible harmony. You pause and look back. The clearing is now a dark circle against the lighter grass beyond. It could be nothing. To anyone else, it might be nothing. But you know what lies below. You know the warmth that seeps through its skin. You know the hum that rises like a secret through the soles of your feet. You know it is not an absence, but a presence. The wind shifts and brushes against your face. It feels like a farewell, or perhaps like a reminder, I'm still here. The sound of it mixes with the hum still echoing inside you, and for a moment it feels as though the two are the same. The voice of the earth above and the voice of the earth below, speaking in the same language. You think of all the layers that lie between you and the heart. Layers of soil, stone and time. Layers of history built on top of it, generations who have walked this ground without knowing, or perhaps knowing but never telling. Layers of silence, thick and deliberate, placed there by those who decided that the world was not ready to hear. And now you carry it with you. That knowing is not a weight in the usual sense. It's more like a seed, small, quiet, but alive. It will grow whether you tend it or not. It will push roots into your thoughts, sprout questions in the quiet hours, reach toward the places where mystery still lives. What else lies hidden, waiting for us to remember? You ask yourself this, and the question feels bigger than you, bigger than the clearing, bigger than the heart itself. Because if one such thing exists, one machine, one living artifact, one heartbeat buried in the dark, then the possibility of others is no longer just a dream. It becomes an expectation. Perhaps they are everywhere, sleeping in places we've walked over 1,000 times, beneath city streets, beneath oceans, beneath deserts so wide that even our satellites do not map every ripple of sand. Perhaps some are silent. Perhaps some are humming quietly, waiting for the right moment, the right sound, the right hand on their surface. The thought is not frightening. It is humbling. It is like standing beneath a sky full of stars and realizing that every one of them is a sun, and you will never know all their names. The heart beneath the clearing is a star you've touched, not with your hands, but with your awareness, and that is enough for now. You pass beneath the first of the trees. The shadows close in around you, the light breaking into narrow threads on the ground. The grass here is rougher, the earth softer underfoot. The hum is fading now, not gone, but quieter, as though distance has thinned the thread between you. You let it fade. You don't need it to be loud. It has already woven itself into you. There is a comfort in knowing that you could return, that you could step back into that circle and feel the warmth rise into your skin again, hear the slow pulse match your breath. Kneel in the silence until the air feels heavier and time feels slower. It will be there, no matter how long you wait. And so, you step out of the trees and into the open land beyond. The clearing now hidden from sight, but not from memory. The night is still deep. Somewhere, an owl calls once, then twice. The stars shift slowly overhead, patient in their watching. You feel small beneath them, but not insignificant. Just a part of something vast, something connected. The path ahead is yours to walk, but you walk it knowing that somewhere behind you, in the dark and the soil and the stone, a great heart is still beating. It will keep beating, and whether it is meant for you or for all of us, or for something that has not yet come to pass, you have heard it. You have felt it. That is the gift of the clearing. That is the gift of the night. You pause once more, turning your thoughts inward. The world is wide, its surface filled with stories, but the greatest ones may be hidden beneath our feet. They may not call to everyone, but when they call to you, you will know. And when you stand in that place, whatever form it takes, you will understand what you have found, even if you cannot name it. And so, as you take the last steps into the quiet of your own space, carrying the night and the hum with you, You let the question rest softly in your mind, without needing to be answered tonight. What else might lie hidden, waiting for us to remember? Let the thought settle into you like a stone into still water. Let the ripples fade. Let your breath slow. Let the weight of the day fall away. And as always, may the silence guide you through the past. Night folds around you as you walk, and the farther you go from the clearing, the more its pulse seems to slide inward, like a moon slipping behind soft cloud. You don't lose it, you carry it. It settles beneath your ribs, gentle and sure, so natural now that you cannot tell where your own rhythm ends and the deep, buried one begins. The air tastes faintly of iron and dew. Your steps grow slower, as if the earth were asking you to linger, to listen, to allow the story to finish speaking in its own unhurried tongue. You find a place to sit, maybe on a low rise of ground warmed by the day, and you look back toward the hidden circle you can no longer see. You don't need to see it. You know it is there, and knowledge, when it is quiet and honest, is as warm as any fire. You close your eyes for a moment and let the darkness behind your eyelids deepen. Out there, beyond the hills, the world keeps its many motions. Waves folding over distant shores, winds arranging the high clouds, small creatures rustling like thoughts through leaf and root. Closer still, a breeze combs through the grass and you hear it as whispers passing from blade to blade. And below, the hum remains steady, not demanding attention, simply present, a low note stretched across time. You breathe with it gently and let your shoulders drop. Each inhalation is a small surrender. Each exhalation is a letting go. In this soft place between waking and sleep, your mind begins to lay faint lines across the map of the world. You picture the clearing, then another like it far away, then another, until the earth seems stitched with quiet centers, resting, humming, patient. You imagine those lines not as wires or roads, but as paths of attention, threads of noticing that link you to strangers you will never meet. Someone in high mountains pauses, hand against a cold stone that is not stone. Someone in a salt desert stands barefoot on warm sand and hears a sound that is not the wind. Someone on a black beach watches the tide turn and senses something turning with it below the deep. None of you speak. None of you must. The connection is older than speech. You think of the stories told in other tongues. Breathmaker, Under Sun, Sleeping Ones. Names are only lanterns. They do not create the light, they merely hold it. The light itself is the same everywhere. A recognition rising from the ground, a feeling that the world is not only surface. The thought soothes you. It makes the night feel companioned. The stars look less like distant fires and more like slow eyes that have always known, watching kindly, without judgment or hurry. Your breath lengthens, and your thoughts slow. When they come now, they come like stones dropped into a still pond, sending out widening circles that fade without disturbance. You remember the old song fragment. It turns the wheel, it keeps the day, and you hum its shape under your breath without melody, just the measure of the words. You imagine the heart below hearing that small echo and answering not with volume but with steadiness, as if to say, "Go on, rest. I am here." A picture forms, not quite a dream yet. A narrow stair spiraling down through soil that crumbles without mess, down through limestone that opens like breath, down to a curved surface neither cold nor hot. In the picture, your hand lays upon it, and the surface greets you with a thrum that loosens your whole body, as if every muscle had been holding a question, And the answer was simply yes. You do not need to open the heart. You do not need to know its diagrams or its secrets. The purpose of this meeting is not mastery but relationship. The machine, if that is what it is, does not feel like a device to be used. It feels like an old agreement kept faithfully in the dark. You remember the people who came before, the shepherd child pressing an ear to the ground, the explorers with lanterns, the student writing. It's so much bigger than I thought. You feel no fear for them now. Fear fades in the presence of something so vast and calm. The night holds them all, and the heart keeps beating, which means the story they entered continues. In another sense, they never left. They are part of the same long inhale you're breathing now. You shift a little, finding a more comfortable place for your back, and the grass sighs. The sound is home-like, the way sheets sound when smoothed over a bed. You think of sleep not as an escape from the mystery, but as a way to move closer to it, to let the gates of thought relax so the older knowing can step through. You let the muscles around your eyes soften, let your jaw unhook, let the tongue rest. You notice how the body, when invited, knows exactly how to return to ease. The body is a map older than any paper, and tonight it leads you where you need to go, towards stillness. A memory rises of the first moment you suspected, the first touch, the first hum, and you compare it to now. It is different. Then you are standing at the threshold with a traveller's alertness. Now you're seated inside the house of it, unafraid to exhale deeply. Acceptance is a door that opens only when you stop knocking. You have stopped knocking. You're inside. Somewhere a low cloud slips off the face of the moon, and a cool wash of light pours across the field. You do not open your eyes, but you feel it. A slight shift in the quality of the dark behind. Your eyelids, a pearl tint where there was coal. The ground seems to breathe a little deeper. You wonder if the heart responds to moonlight, or if it sings to the moon in some way tides already know. The thought makes you smile. A small closed lip curve felt more than seen. What remains unfinished now? The mind reaches for tasks, but the night has none to give. There is nothing to solve. You're not here to pull a secret from the deep and lay it bare under bright lamps. You're here to witness, to accompany, to be accompanied. A companionship with the hidden is a tender thing, easily disturbed by hurry, and tonight you refuse to hurry. You choose the long path, the gentle step, the breath that waits a half beat before returning. On the horizon of thought, other possibilities drift and dim, like ships seen at a great distance. If the heart is part of a web, then there may be messages we have never learned to read. Slow, planetary conversations in pressure and heat, in magnet and tide. Perhaps species before us knew how to hear them. Perhaps species after us will know again. For now, it is enough to know that a conversation exists, that you stand within it like a guest at the doorway of a great hall, listening to music even if you do not yet recognize the tune. You place your palm against the earth beside you, not at the clearing, but close enough to remember. The soil is cool, the echo warms it. You imagine that if you stayed here until dawn, the hum would carry you through the passage of hours like a quiet boat. You could drift and never be lost. Rest is a kind of navigation. Trust, another. You have both. And so you let your breath become the whole of your attention, the way the air enters, the pause at the top, the soft fall, the quiet place at the bottom where everything rests and nothing is demanded. In that bottom place, time loosens its grip, and the story shows you its oldest image: stone, shadow, silence, the triplet that the land itself repeats. Not empty, not blank, but full of patience. If there is a prayer for this night, it is simple. May the heart continue. May whatever promise was made when it was placed here remain unbroken. May we learn to listen without breaking what we listen to. And if, one day, the doors must open, may our hands be steady and our voices low. For now there is only this: the body relaxing, the mind dimming to a soft glow, the world holding you in its long, slow breathing. The hidden keeps its watch, the visible keeps its peace. You dwell in the seam between, soothed by the knowledge that not every mystery demands an answer. Some only ask for company. You give it gladly. The grass sways, the pulse endures, and sleep, like a gentle tide, comes in. Sleep does not take you all at once. It moves in slow tides, like the distant sea that the heart may or may not keep in balance. You drift at the edges first, still aware of the earth beneath you, the air above, the thin weave of wind and night. The hum is quieter now, but only because you have moved inward toward it. It no longer needs to rise up and meet you. You have gone to it yourself, somewhere in that quiet space between waking and dream. You find yourself standing again, but this time in a place that is not quite the clearing, and not quite somewhere else. The ground feels the same, firm, warm in places, with that same steady vibration, but the horizon is different. It curves upward, as if you are inside a great shell. There is no sky here, only a soft darkness above, speckled not with stars, but with faint glowing lines that arc and bend like the branches of some immense tree. You do not know if this is imagination or memory, but it feels real enough that you breathe carefully, afraid to disturb it. The lines overhead pulse faintly, in rhythm with the ground beneath you. You realize you're not outside anymore, you're inside something. You walk forward, and the sound of your steps does not echo the way it would in a cave. Instead, it is absorbed, softened, as though the very air is listening. In the distance, though distance here feels strange, fluid, you see a shape rise from the ground. At first, you think it is a column, smooth and seamless. But as you approach, you see that it is more like the trunk of an impossibly tall tree, its surface patterned with interlocking plates. Between some of the plates, light glows softly, the same pale colour as the lines above. It is not the cold light of electricity, nor the flicker of flame. It is alive in a way light is not supposed to be. You place your hand against it without thinking. The warmth is immediate, like a touch returned. The hum you have carried with you is stronger here, not louder, but deeper, a vibration that passes through your skin and into your bones. For a moment you feel as though you are the one being touched, not the other way around. It's then that you notice movement, far off and low to the ground. Something slides, not in the skittering way of an animal, but in a slow, deliberate arc, as if it is turning toward you. The movement stops. The hum holds steady. Nothing else happens. You cannot tell if the heart has acknowledged you, or if it is simply continuing what it has always done. In the dream, if dream it is, you understand something that in waking life you could only guess. This is not a machine in the way we build machines. It is not separate from the earth around it. It is the earth around it, grown or shaped into being with a purpose that makes machine feel like too small a word. You know that every plate, every line of light, every pulse has meaning. You also know that the meaning is not yours to take, only to stand near. There is no fear. You thought there might be. The old instinct to pull back from what is vast and unknown, but instead there is an ease that fills your chest like breath after a long swim. You realize you could stand here forever, and the heart would not mind. It does not guard itself against you. It simply exists. You walk along its surface, your fingers trailing the smooth, warm lines between the plates. In some places the warmth is stronger, and you feel a faint pull, like the gravity of a great body drawing you closer. You think of the spokes of heat seen from above, radiating out from the clearing. Perhaps those are not just lines in the soil, but the roots of this living structure, spreading through the ground to places far beyond your sight. Eventually you return to the place where you first touched it. The hum changes, not much, but enough that you notice. The rhythm skips once, then resumes. You do not know if that is for you, or simply part of its endless cycle. It feels like a greeting, or perhaps a farewell. The darkness shifts. The lines above grow dimmer, the warmth softer. The dream, if dream it is, begins to dissolve. You feel the air of the real night again, cooler, sharper, and the ground beneath you returns to the simple grass and soil of the clearing. Your eyes open, though you do not remember closing them. The moon is still behind its veil of cloud. The wind has quieted. The hum is there, faint but steady. You're no longer inside, but the memory of being there is now yours, just as much as the feel of the grass or the sound of the night. Whether it was a dream or something more, it has left its mark on you. You rise slowly, brushing the soil from your hands. The path away from the clearing lies in shadow, but you no longer need the moon to light it. You carry your own light now, not bright, but steady, the kind that lasts. As you walk, you think of others who might have had the same dream. Caro, perhaps, with his final words in his journal. It isn't dead. The shepherd child with their ear to the ground. The student who wrote, "It's so much bigger than I thought." Maybe each of them saw their own version of the inside, each shaped to the way they could best understand it. The trees part, and the open land appears ahead. The night is quieter here, without the undercurrent of the heart. You pause at the threshold, looking back toward the clearing, though it is hidden now by branches and shadow. You cannot see it, but you know it is there, and more than that, you know you are part of its story now. The wind lifts once more, cool against your face. This time it feels like an agreement. You nod without meaning to, and then you turn and walk on. The hum recedes, but it does not leave you. It never will. The stars turn slowly overhead. Somewhere deep beneath your feet, the heart keeps its time, and you keep yours, walking forward into the rest of the night, knowing that one day, whether in dream or in waking, you will return. The night is almost spent now, but you walk as if time has slowed just for you. The air is cooler, the shadows longer, the silence thicker. You know you are moving away from the clearing, away from that circle of grass and the warmth beneath it, but it doesn't feel like leaving. The heart is not a place you abandon. Once you've felt it, once it has spoken to you in its quiet, steady way, you carry it with you. It becomes a companion you cannot lose. Ahead, the land dips slightly before rising again, and at the crest you pause, looking back one last time. There is no visible sign of the clearing from here, no bright marker to say, "Here lies the mystery." Only darkness, grass, and the curve of the hills, and yet you feel it, deep under the skin of the earth, beating in its patient rhythm. It has been there for longer than the sky has held these exact stars, and it will be there long after we are gone. You close your eyes and breathe deeply. The scent of grass and cool soil drifts upward. Somewhere far off, water moves, a stream finding its way downhill in the dark. And beneath it all, steady and unfaltering, the hum. It is softer now, but not because it is weaker. It is simply further away, its strength no longer needing to shout through the soil to reach you. You already know it. You already belong to it. A thought passes gently through your mind. The heart does not care for time the way we do. It is not in a hurry. It does not count years. It does not dread endings. It has no fear of being forgotten because it remembers for itself. All it asks, if it asks anything at all, is to be witnessed now and then, to be acknowledged, to have its hum met by a listening ear and a steady breath. You wonder how many others have stood where you stood tonight. How many have walked away with the same hum in their bones, the same soft awareness blooming in their thoughts. Maybe they too walked through nights like this one, carrying the presence of the heart as if it were a lantern they couldn't put down. The wind moves again, carrying with it a faint change in temperature. You lift your head to it, letting the night brush against your skin. Somewhere in that shifting air is the memory of the clearing, as if the land itself has held onto the imprint of your time there. It is strange to think that the heart, so old and hidden, may never truly be ours to understand, and yet, perhaps that is what makes it so beautiful. Not every mystery is meant to be solved. Some exist to remind us that the world is deeper than we imagine, that the soil beneath our feet holds more than roots and stone. You step forward again, slow and unhurried. The land rises gently beneath your feet until you're once more walking at the edge of the horizon. The stars overhead have shifted slightly. The moon is lower now, its pale light stretched thin across the ground. Soon the first suggestion of dawn will begin in the east, but for now the night is still yours. You stop at the highest point and let your gaze travel over the sleeping land. The hills lie dark and soft. The trees lean toward each other in slow conversation, and the open spaces between them feel like pages waiting to be written on. But somewhere, under one of those blank pages, the heart keeps turning. It is then you realize tonight was not about answers, it was about connection. You are no closer to knowing what the heart truly is, but you are infinitely closer to knowing your place beside it. And in some ways, that is more precious. Answers can be lost. Connection cannot. You close your eyes one final time, letting the night seep in, the hum finding its way to the very center of you. When you breathe out, you feel lighter. The world feels larger, but not in a way that makes you small. You're part of it now, part of the silent network of those who have heard and remembered. The heart will remain. The grass will sway. The wind will carry its quiet song across the land, and maybe someday, when the time is right, it will awaken fully, and the world will change in ways we cannot yet imagine. But until then, it will keep its promise to the earth, and you will keep your promise to remember it. You open your eyes, the path ahead is clear, the night is deep, and somewhere, far below, the heart still beats. If you felt the hum tonight, if you walked the clearing in your mind, stood in that circle, and carried its rhythm with you, tell us. Share your thoughts, your feelings, the shapes that rose in your imagination. Where were you listening from? What stars were above you? We're always listening too. out here in the quiet. And if this journey has touched you, if the mystery has wrapped itself gently around your thoughts, like, share, and leave a comment. Let others step into the clearing and feel the hum for themselves. Let the story travel, just as the heart's rhythm has travelled through time. And as always, may the silence guide you through the past.